David always thought family was everything until his brother-in-law Robert changed that perception. It began 5 years ago when I married Emma, Robert's sister. At first, things seemed perfect. Emma and I were deeply in love, and I was excited to become part of her family. Robert was the golden child of the family, successful, charismatic, and working for Westfield Technologies, one of the largest tech firms in Boston. He had everything: the corner office, the luxury car, the perfect family. And he never let anyone forget it. The first sign of trouble came during Thanksgiving dinner that year. As everyone gathered around the table, Robert raised his glass for a toast. "To family," he said, smiling at everyone except me. "The real family." I brushed it off as a simple oversight, but Emma noticed. She squeezed my hand under the table, silently reassuring me. Later that night, she confronted her brother. "What was that about, Robert?" she asked. What was what about?" he replied innocently. "That toast, the way you looked at everyone but David." Robert laughed. "Don't be so sensitive, sis. He's not really family yet, is he? He's just the guy you married." Emma was furious, but I convinced her to let it go. "It's not worth fighting over," I told her. "He'll come around." But he didn't come around. Instead, things got worse. The following month, Emma's parents celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary. Emma and I only found out about the party after seeing photos on social media. When she called her mother, confused and hurt, she was told that Robert had handled the guest list. "He said you were both busy that weekend," her mother explained. "He seemed so sure." We hadn't been busy. We hadn't even been asked. This pattern continued for months, then years. Christmas gatherings where our invitation mysteriously got lost in the mail. Family vacations we learned about only after they happened. Birthday celebrations, we were told, were just immediate family. Somehow that didn't include us. Each time Robert had an excuse. Each time he made it seem like an innocent mistake. And each time I saw the pain in Emma's eyes grow deeper. "Why does he hate you so much?" she asked one night, tears streaming down her face after we'd been excluded from yet another family gathering. I didn't have an answer. I'd tried everything, offering friendship, keeping my distance, confronting him directly. Nothing worked. Then, 3 years into our marriage, I finally discovered why. Emma's cousin let it slip at a rare family event we were actually invited to. "Robert always thought he and Jessica would end up together," she said, referring to my ex-girlfriend from college. "They dated for a while after you two broke up. He was planning to propose when she told him she couldn't stop thinking about you. She ended things right after." Suddenly, everything made sense. Robert's hatred wasn't about me at all. It was about what I represented, a reminder of his failure, of the woman who had chosen the memory of me over the reality of him. I told Emma what I'd learned, expecting her to confront her brother. Instead, she made a difficult decision. "I'm done," she said. "If he can't accept you, then he doesn't get me either." She stopped attending the events I wasn't invited to. She limited her contact with Robert to holidays and essential family functions. It broke her heart, but she stood firm. Meanwhile, I focused on my career. I'd always been good with investments and technology startups. While Robert climbed the corporate ladder at Westfield Technologies, I was building my own success story. I founded a small investment firm specializing in emerging tech companies, and within 2 years, we were making waves in the industry. One Monday morning, my assistant burst into my office with breaking news. Westfield Technologies was in trouble. Their latest product launch had failed spectacularly. Their stock was plummeting, and they were vulnerable to acquisition. I sat at my desk, staring at the financial reports. Westfield wasn't just Robert's employer. It was his identity, his pride, the source of his perceived superiority. And now, it was within my reach. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" my business partner asked from the doorway. I looked up, a plan already forming in my mind. Call our investors. We're going to need additional capital. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of meetings, negotiations, and sleepless nights. Emma knew I was working on something big, but didn't ask for details. She trusted me completely. Finally, on a crisp fall morning, the deal was done. My investment firm had acquired a controlling stake in Westfield Technologies. The board, desperate for new leadership, appointed me as interim CEO. I didn't tell Emma right away. I wanted to see Robert's face first. The Westfield Technologies headquarters stood tall in downtown Boston, all glass and steel gleaming in the morning sun. I adjusted my tie as I walked through the revolving doors, a strange mix of nervousness and anticipation churning in my stomach. The security guard at the front desk looked up as I approached. "Can I help you, sir?" "David Mitchell," I said, showing him my newly issued ID badge with CEO prominently displayed. "I'm here for my first day." His eyes widened slightly. "Of course, Mr. Mitchell, the executive elevator is to your right." The news of the acquisition and change in leadership had been announced to senior management the previous evening, but most employees were still unaware. That included Robert, who had been on a business trip during the announcement and was returning to the office this morning. As I rode the elevator to the executive floor, I thought about Emma. She still didn't know. I'd told her I had a surprise, something that might finally resolve the situation with her brother. She'd looked skeptical, but hopeful. The executive floor was bustling with activity when I arrived. My new assistant, Sarah, greeted me at the elevator. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell. The senior team is gathered in the conference room for your introduction. Mr. Henderson from HR has prepared a company-wide email that will go out at 9 a.m. "Thank you, Sarah. Before we do that, could you tell me which floor Robert Collins works on?" "Marketing is on the 10th floor," she replied, checking her tablet. "Mr. Collins should be arriving shortly according to his calendar." I nodded. "Let's push the meeting back 30 minutes. There's something I need to do first." Sarah looked confused, but didn't question my decision. "Of course, sir." I took the elevator down to the 10th floor. It was open plan, with rows of desks stretching across the space. At the far end, a few private offices lined the wall. Through the glass partitions, I could see Robert's name on one of the doors. His office was empty, but his coat was draped over his chair and his computer was on. He must have just arrived and stepped away. I decided to wait. I stood by the floor's main entrance, watching as employees settled into their workstations, most casting curious glances my way. I was clearly not from their department, and my expensive suit marked me as someone important. 10 minutes later, Robert appeared, carrying a coffee cup and chatting with a colleague. He hadn't seen me yet. I straightened my posture and stepped forward. "Hello, Robert." He froze mid-step, coffee sloshing dangerously close to the rim of his cup. The colleague beside him looked between us, sensing tension but unaware of its source. "David?" Robert's voice was a mixture of confusion and immediate hostility. "What are you doing here? This is a secure floor." I smiled and held up my ID badge. "I'm aware of the security protocols. After all, I am responsible for them now." His eyes narrowed, then widened as he read the badge. This must be some kind of joke. "No joke," I replied calmly. "Westfield has new ownership as of yesterday. I've been appointed CEO." A hush fell over the nearby desks as employees stopped pretending not to listen. Robert's face flushed deep red. "That's impossible," he hissed. "I would have heard about this." "Senior management was informed last night. You were on a business trip, as I understand it. The company-wide announcement goes out in about," I checked my watch, "15 minutes. Robert's colleague mumbled something about needing to check his email and quickly walked away, leaving us alone in the increasingly uncomfortable silence. "You can't do this," Robert said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You're not qualified. You don't know anything about this company." "On the contrary," I replied, I've spent the last 3 months learning everything about Westfield Technologies. Its strengths, its weaknesses, its potential. That's what a responsible investor does before acquiring a company. The word acquiring hit him like a physical blow. He took a step back, coffee forgotten in his hand. "Why?" he finally asked. "Is this because of the family gatherings? Are you really that petty?" I looked at him steadily. "This isn't about pettiness, Robert. This is business. Westfield is undervalued and underperforming. My firm specializes in turning companies like this around." I paused, then added, "Though I won't deny there's a certain poetry to the situation." Whispers were spreading across the floor now. Employees were pulling up news sites on their screens, confirming what they were overhearing. "You won't last a week," Robert said, his voice cold. "The board will see through you." "The board approved my appointment unanimously," I replied. "They're quite impressed with my vision for Westfield's future." A ping sounded from computers across the floor as the company-wide email arrived. Robert's phone buzzed in his pocket, but he didn't check it. He didn't need to. His worst nightmare was standing right in front of him. "Now," I said, "I have a meeting with the senior team. We'll be discussing the new direction for the company. Your director should brief you afterward." I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back. "Oh, and Robert, Emma and I would love to have you over for dinner sometime. You know, family and all that." The next few weeks at Westfield Technologies were a blur of activity. As CEO, I initiated a complete review of all departments, met with key clients, and started implementing the vision I had pitched to the board. The company needed restructuring, but I was determined to do it thoughtfully, without the mass layoffs that often accompanied acquisitions. Through it all, Robert remained a shadow on the periphery of my new professional life. He didn't directly challenge me, but I heard from other executives that he was quietly criticizing my decisions in marketing meetings, questioning my expertise, and predicting failure. Emma was thrilled when I finally told her about the acquisition. At first, she had been shocked, then amused, and finally deeply moved by what she saw as my grand gesture. "Did you really buy an entire company just to get back at my brother?" she asked one night, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset. I took her hand. "No, I bought a good company with great potential that happened to employ your brother. The fact that it might teach him a lesson is just a bonus." She laughed, but then grew serious. "Has he spoken to you since that first day?" "Only in group meetings," I replied. "He avoids being alone with me." "And what about my parents? Have you told them yet?" I hadn't. News of my new position hadn't reached Emma's family yet, and part of me was waiting for Robert to break the news, but he hadn't. "I think that should come from you," I said, "or from both of us." The opportunity came sooner than expected. The following weekend, Emma's mother called to invite us to Sunday dinner, the first such invitation in years. "Your father and I miss you," she said to Emma, "and Robert has been so busy with work lately. Something big is happening at his company, but he won't talk about it." Emma raised an eyebrow at me while on the phone. "We'd love to come, Mum. Actually, David has some news too." When we arrived at her parents' suburban home that Sunday, the atmosphere was tense. Robert's car was already in the driveway, and when we entered, he was sitting in the living room with his wife, Lisa, both nursing glasses of wine. Robert barely acknowledged our presence, but Lisa stood to greet us warmly. She had always been friendly to me, despite her husband's hostility. "David, Emma, it's been too long," she said, hugging us both. "Robert's been working crazy hours lately. Something about new management at Westfield." Emma's mother appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. "New management? You didn't mention that, Robert." Robert shot me a warning look. "It's nothing major, Mom, just some restructuring." I could have let it go. Part of me wanted to for Emma's sake. But then I remembered all the years of exclusion, the pain in Emma's eyes every time she discovered another family gathering we hadn't been invited to. "Actually," I said casually, "that's part of my news. I've recently taken a new position myself." Emma's father, who had just entered the room, looked interested. "Oh, leaving that investment firm of yours?" "Not exactly," I replied. "I'm expanding my role. My firm acquired a controlling interest in Westfield Technologies. I've stepped in as CEO." The silence that followed was deafening. Lisa's mouth dropped open. Emma's parents looked between Robert and me, confusion written across their faces. "You bought Robert's company?" Emma's mother finally asked. "Not just his company," Robert said bitterly. "My entire career, 15 years of work, and now he's my boss." Emma's father frowned. "I don't understand. Why would you do that, David?" Before I could answer, Robert stood up abruptly. "Isn't it obvious? He did it to humiliate me, to get back at me for—" He stopped himself, but it was too late. "For what, Robert?" Emma asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "For excluding us from family events for years? For deliberately trying to separate me from my own family?" Lisa turned to her husband, shock on her face. "What is she talking about?" Emma's mother looked equally confused. "Robert, what does she mean?" Robert's face flushed. "They're exaggerating. I might have forgotten to invite them a few times, but—" "A few times," Emma interrupted. "Christmas 3 years in a row, Mom and Dad's anniversary, family vacations, even Grandma's 80th birthday. Every single time, you told everyone we were busy or couldn't make it without ever asking us." Her parents looked stunned. Her father turned to Robert. "Is this true?" Robert couldn't meet his gaze. Instead, he pointed at me. "This is exactly what he wants, to turn you all against me." "No, Robert," I said calmly. "I don't want to turn anyone against you. I never have. All I ever wanted was to be accepted as part of this family." Lisa stood up, her expression hardened. "I think we should go, Robert." "What? We just got here. Dinner isn't even ready," he protested. "I said we're leaving," Lisa repeated firmly. She turned to Emma's parents. "I'm sorry. I had no idea about any of this. I always wondered why David and Emma missed so many gatherings." "Udun." As they collected their coats, Lisa whispered something to Robert that made him pale. Then they were gone, the front door closing behind them with a decisive click. The four of us remaining stood in uncomfortable silence until Emma's mother finally spoke. "I think we all need a drink before dinner," she said. "And you two have a lot more explaining to do." Over the next hour, Emma and I told her parents everything, the years of exclusion, the pain it had caused, and finally, the strange coincidence that had put Westfield Technologies in my path. "I didn't buy the company to hurt Robert," I explained, "but I won't pretend it didn't factor into my decision." Emma's father shook his head. "I can't believe he would do this. He's always been competitive, but this is something else." "I think it goes back to Jessica," Emma said quietly. "His ex." Her mother nodded slowly. "He was devastated when she broke things off. He never told us why." The Monday after that revealing family dinner, I arrived at Westfield headquarters earlier than usual. I had a feeling Robert would seek me out, and I wanted to be prepared. I was right. Just after 7:30 a.m., he appeared in my office doorway, looking like he hadn't slept. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Come in." He closed the door behind him and sat down, his posture rigid. "Lisa is furious with me. She's staying at her sister's place." I didn't respond, waiting for him to continue. "My parents called last night. They're disappointed." He said the word as if it physically hurt. "Dad said he never raised me to be cruel." "I'm sorry about Lisa," I said, and I meant it. She seemed like a good person caught in the middle of a situation not of her making. Robert laughed bitterly. Are you? This is what you wanted, isn't it? To ruin my life? I leaned forward. No, Robert. That was never my goal. All I wanted was for Emma to have her family back. All of her family. He looked away. Because of Jessica. So, it is about her, I said softly. Robert's jaw tightened. She was the one, you know. We were perfect together. And then she starts talking about her college boyfriend, how he was so ambitious, so driven, how she made a mistake letting him go. I had no idea, I said honestly. Jessica and I broke up years before I met Emma. I hadn't spoken to her since graduation. Doesn't matter, he muttered. Every time I looked at you, I saw the man who took my future without even trying, without even knowing he'd done it. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years of resentment hanging in the air between us. Finally, I spoke. I have a proposal for you, Robert. He looked up, suspicion in his eyes. What kind of proposal? A professional one, I replied. You're good at your job. Everyone in marketing speaks highly of you. The campaigns you've developed have been innovative, even if the products themselves weren't ready. He nodded cautiously, waiting. Westfield is opening a European headquarters in London. We need someone strong to head up marketing there, someone who knows the company, who can build a team from the ground up. Robert's eyes widened. You're offering me a promotion to London. It's an opportunity, I said, a fresh start, professionally and perhaps personally. Lisa might appreciate the adventure. If she's still speaking to me, he muttered. That's between you and her, I replied. But the position is yours, if you want it. He studied my face, looking for the catch. Why would you do this after everything? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Boston skyline. Because despite everything, you're family, and because Emma misses her brother, the real Robert, not the one consumed by resentment. She said that? I turned back to him. She didn't have to. Robert fell silent, his expression unreadable. After what seemed like an eternity, he spoke again. I need time to think, to talk to Lisa. Of course, I replied. The position doesn't need to be filled immediately. He stood to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not for how I felt, but for what I did with those feelings. It wasn't fair to Emma. It wasn't an apology to me, but it was a start. Thank you for saying that. After he left, I called Emma to tell her about our conversation. She was cautiously optimistic. Do you think he'll take the London position? She asked. I don't know, I answered honestly. But at least we're talking now. 2 weeks later, Robert and Lisa invited us to dinner at their home, the first such invitation we'd ever received. The conversation was stilted at first, but as the evening progressed, the tension began to ease. Over dessert, Robert made his announcement. We've decided to accept the London position, he said, reaching for Lisa's hand. We're both ready for a change. Emma's eyes lit up. That's wonderful. When do you leave? In a month, Lisa replied. Just enough time to sell the house and pack up. As the women discussed the logistics of moving overseas, Robert pulled me aside to the patio. I want to be clear about something, he said once we were alone. I'm not taking this job because I forgive you or because we're suddenly going to be best friends. I nodded. I understand. But, he continued, I am taking it because it's a good opportunity, and because Lisa deserves better than the man I've been the past few years. He took a deep breath, and maybe, just maybe, my sister and her husband deserve better too. It wasn't quite an olive branch, but it was something close to it, a recognition that the path forward didn't have to be defined by the past. The month flew by. Before we knew it, we were at the airport saying goodbye to Robert and Lisa. Emma hugged her brother tightly, tears in her eyes. Promise you'll video call every week, she said. I promise, Robert replied, his own voice thick with emotion. When it was my turn, Robert extended his hand. I took it, and for the first time his handshake felt genuine. "Take care of the company," he said, "and take care of my sister." "I will," I promised. "Both of them." As we watched them walk through security, Emma slipped her hand into mine. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not giving up on him. On us as a family." I smiled and squeezed her hand. Family is everything, remember? 3 months later, Emma and I flew to London for Thanksgiving. Robert and Lisa had settled into a beautiful flat near Hyde Park, and the European headquarters was thriving under Robert's marketing leadership. As we gathered around their dining table, Robert raised his glass for a toast. "To family," he said, looking directly at me this time. "All of it." It wasn't perfect, and the wounds of the past hadn't completely healed. But as we clinked glasses across that table in London, I knew that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's rebuilding what was broken, even if you have to buy a company to do it.